Welcome, listener, to a deep dive where, well, we lean right into that tension, the one that sits right at the core of the human heart. Today, we're exploring something I think many of us wrestle with. It's one of the most confusing and honestly profoundly painful paradoxes of life, which is the fact that the fiercest, most explosive anger we seem to possess, it's almost always reserved for the people we love the most.
And we invite you, as you listen, just to settle in, maybe slow your breath a little, and try to recognize this experience if it resonates, not as some kind of personal failure, but maybe as a teaching. This won't be a dive into, the usual external processes, conflict resolution techniques, and all that. It's more of a quiet internal exploration, looking for that steady truth that remains, even when the emotional storm is really raging.
Yeah, I've definitely lived this paradox so many times. And the shame that comes after, that's often worse than the fight itself. You know the scenario, right?
Yeah.
Harder than those quiet moments, often. Maybe you're just standing in the kitchen totally exhausted after a long day, or maybe sitting together on the sofa. The place feels calm, it feels safe, maybe even soft.
Yeah.
And then just a small comment lands.
Just a little thing.
Exactly. Could be about forgetting an errand or a slight change in plans, or just a tone of voice that feels a bit off, dismissive maybe.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily harsh, not objectively, but it lands wrong, hits some kind of unseen nerve.
And suddenly, all that composure you held together all day long, it just collapses. The jaw tightens. Maybe you feel that heat rising from your chest.
Yeah.
And then the harshest words, completely disproportionate, just fly out of your mouth, aimed right at the one person whose presence is supposed to be your safe harbor.
Yes. And later, when the adrenaline fades, the confusion washes over you. Why did I explode like that? Why did I use my biggest weapon against the person I care about most in the entire world, it feels like? Like emotional sabotage. Or like there's something fundamentally wrong with me.
Well, that confusion is completely understandable. It feels jarring. But maybe the intensity of that reaction, maybe it's actually a powerful mirror, showing the depth of the intimacy you share. Think about it. We simply don't rage at strangers like that. We don't lose our core composure with casual acquaintances over some small slight, our fiercest, most volatile heat. It seems it's only generated for those who've earned the right, in a way, to see us completely. Those whose hands have, held ours in the dark.
So that suggests that explosive reaction, maybe it isn't a flaw at all. Maybe it's actually a sign of profound trust, like radical trust, proof that we've actually let the armor down.
Precisely. Think about the armor we all wear out in the world. At work, interacting with people casually, we maintain a certain exterior, don't we? Polished, polite, contained. We manage our expressions. We choose our words carefully. We curate our responses. But home, that intimate space, that container, that's where we allow ourselves, often without even realizing it, to let that armor just fall away.
And when the armor drops,
Yeah.
well, what's underneath isn't just love, is it? It's all the tender stuff, too. The unprocessed parts we usually keep hidden away.
Yeah.
The anxiety, the old hurts, the sheer exhaustion that builds up.
Yes. And this is both the essential danger and, I think, the breathtaking beauty of that raw vulnerability. When we are exposed like that, the skin is thin, the nerves are right near the surface, and in that state of raw honesty, even the slightest emotional friction, a misheard word, a moment of forgetfulness, something not going as expected, it can feel less like a simple mistake or an inconvenience and more like a violent intrusion. When we're that raw, even a feather brushing against us can feel like a blade.
Okay, so if we accept that, then our journey isn't about trying to get rid of this anger, which, let's be honest, might be impossible anyway. It's more about transforming our relationship to it, moving past that really ingrained self-judging idea that anger is just poison, pure poison, and instead maybe seeing it as a pathway, a difficult one, yes, a fiery pathway, but one that could lead to deeper understanding and maybe ultimately a more mature connection with ourselves and with the people we love.
Our aim today, our mission, if you like, is to try and shift, to move from that automatic knee-jerk emotional reaction towards a more deliberate, compassionate inquiry. So to begin this transformation, we need to touch on a piece of ancient wisdom, which is that the poison isn't really the anger itself, not fundamentally. The poison is the profound misunderstanding of what the anger is telling us. The path forward requires us to recognize anger essentially as a kind of messenger, like a signal flare perhaps, fired up from the depths of our being. And it's indicating one single undeniable fact. Something here is out of alignment. Something needs attention.
It's hard, though, isn't it, to see it that way when the feeling is just so huge, overwhelming. When that flashpoint happens, say, my partner forgets something really important they promised. The fury that comes up doesn't feel like some polite messenger delivering a note. It feels like like a volcano erupting.
Mm-hmm.
Pure, toxic survival instinct. Why is it so primal?
Well, psychologically speaking, your body is simply reacting based on a very old historical truth, something hardwired deep in our systems. Modern neuroscience is actually confirming what, ancient contemplative traditions intuited long ago. The nervous system is reacting to the perceived threat of abandonment or a deep rupture in the relationship. The brain's threat detection center, the amygdala, it doesn't really differentiate that well between a physical danger, like a predator, and a significant emotional disappointment from someone whose reliable connection is frankly, crucial for your emotional safety.
Wow. So when a loved one does something that feels like rejection or disregard or just a serious lack of care, maybe they choose work over something important we planned, or they brush off a feeling that's really strong for me. My nervous system genuinely registers that with the same kind of red alert urgency as if there were a lion in the bushes outside the cave.
In essence, yes, the response is incredibly rapid, it's overwhelming, it's not logical or linear, because from an evolutionary standpoint, abandonment or sustained betrayal by your primary attachment figures, well, that dramatically reduced your chances of survival historically. So the intensity of your reaction now is often proportional to the level of dependence and vulnerability you've allowed yourself to feel in that specific relationship. That's why the anger you might feel towards a spouse, for example, is fundamentally different and usually far more powerful than the frustration you might feel with a colleague about a missed deadline.
Okay, that connects so clearly to this idea you mentioned, the illusion of betrayal. Because when I'm in that heat, in that moment, I feel completely betrayed by them. It's their fault. But what you seem to be suggesting is that they're actually just reflecting my own internal world back at me, my own unacknowledged needs.
Precisely. The closer someone is to us, the more sharply they illuminate the contours of our unmet needs and our unspoken, often unconscious expectations. Every relationship carries this kind of invisible internal contract, an inner image of how this partnership should work, how they should behave to keep our world feeling predictable, feeling safe. And when a loved one acts in a way that clashes with that perfect inner image, the feeling of betrayal isn't really coming from them, it's the shock. The shock of reality refusing to conform to the fantasy we've built around them.
Right, so the crucial shift, the doorway into that self-inquiry you mentioned, it has to be changing the question we ask ourselves. Stop demanding, why are they making me so angry? And start genuinely asking, what am I truly angry about underneath this?
Yes. We have to look beneath the surface trigger. Is the fire really about the dishes left in the sink? Or is it a signal flare about feeling unseen, unvalued after you've worked yourself to the bone all day? Is the anger about their forgetfulness with money, maybe? Or is it tapping into a much deeper, perhaps inherited fear about instability? That deeper inquiry offers liberation. But we first need to clear some space in our awareness for that wisdom to even enter. It reminds me of that old Zen story, the master pouring tea into a cup that's already full.
Oh yeah, where it just overflows.
Exactly. And the master explains that just like the cup can't hold any more tea when it's full, the mind can't receive wisdom when it's already overflowing with rage and certainty. Wisdom needs space.
So it means we have to first acknowledge the anger is there, accept its presence without necessarily acting on it, and then deliberately create a bit of space around it. Before we can even begin to ask that deeper, potentially transforming question, we have to empty the cup a little first. That overflowing cup analogy. It points right to the conditional nature of so much of what we call love, doesn't it? That unconscious contract we place on the people close to us. The one that says, basically, okay, I give you my heart, but in return, you have to act in ways that keep me feeling safe and validated and whole all the time.
And that expectation, when we hold on to it really tightly, it's fundamentally an attempt to control. It might be disguised as deep care or concern, but at its root, it's about control. And it places this very fragile condition on the relationship. So when reality inevitably refuses to conform because, let's face it, all humans are messy, they change, they're unpredictable, anger erupts because our illusion of control has just been shattered. We often confuse true, selfless connection with our own desire for emotional stability and predictable comfort. And that confusion leads directly to suffering.
Right. This feels like where we really need to draw a distinction between genuine love and, well, dependency. Like when I say I love you, maybe what I often unconsciously mean is something more like I need you to be a certain way. I need you to check these specific boxes reliably so that I can continue to feel worthy or whole or secure. It's like using them as essential emotional scaffolding.
And that dependency is rooted in what the ancient teachings identify as upadana, clinging. It's that grasping quality, that emotional attachment to things staying exactly as we prefer them. And the desperate desire for things to be different than they are. That's taksha, craving, the thirst. Thirst for things we don't have, or the thirst for things we do have to never, ever change. This craving for stability and control. That's seen as the primary root of so much emotional suffering.
So what we're talking about is trying to transform that conditional kind of love, which often feels more like a transaction or maybe a subscription service you hope never gets canceled.
Yeah.
Trying to transform that into something more enduring, more real.
Exactly. Conditional love says, I love you if.
Right, if you keep making me feel safe or validated or whatever it is. It's a demand.
It is. And we need to contrast this with the quality of metta, often translated as loving kindness.
Okay, so what does metta truly say? How is it different from just being nice or tolerant?
Metta is more radical than that. It's a form of radical acceptance, coupled with an active wish for well-being. It says, may you be well, may you be free from suffering, may you truly be free, even if your freedom looks profoundly different from the future I had imagined for us. It's the active desire for the other person's genuine well-being, completely separate from how their well-being serves your personal comfort or security. It's the ultimate release of ownership.
That sounds incredibly liberating, but also kind of terrifying. Especially if maybe we have a history where love felt like something we had to earn. You know, if we learned way back in childhood that affection only came with perfection or compliance, then every little lapse in care from a loved one now as an adult, it feels like a direct threat to our fundamental worthiness. And that triggers that intense defensive anger you were talking about.
That is the core vulnerability, the wound that we must learn gently to soothe within ourselves. There's a helpful metaphor here. The grip in the sand. You know how the tighter you clench your fist around a handful of sand, the faster it slips through your fingers? It's similar with people. When we desperately try to control them or shape them or fix them, believing this effort will somehow secure them and secure us. The very act of trying to control another person's inner world or behavior generates resistance. It creates suffering in the relationship. But the moment we can relax that grip, the relationship can actually rest more securely in our open palm.
And here's the part that feels liberating, I suppose. The truth that can dissolve that grip of attachment. We absolutely cannot control external reality. That includes another person's behavior, their timing, their inner state, their choices. But we absolutely can transform our internal relationship to that reality. So we have to turn our focus inward, towards that quiet ground, the ground of non-attachment.
Now, when we talk about non-attachment in this kind of context, we need to be really clear. We are definitely not advocating for cold indifference or some kind of emotional detachment where you just don't care. That's a common misunderstanding, sometimes called spiritual bypassing, right? Using spiritual ideas to avoid feeling difficult emotions or, frankly, setting necessary boundaries.
Yes, that's exactly the challenge I think a listener might bump up against here. If I stop being attached, if I stop demanding things, doesn't that mean I just stop caring? Or that I become apathetic, even about serious problems in the relationship? Shouldn't my anger sometimes be the fuel I need to actually confront things that aren't okay?
It's a valid question. The difference lies in the intention and perhaps the energy behind the action. True non-attachment, as understood here, is more like non-attachment in action. It's cultivating a deep, steady, kind of unflappable presence within yourself. That presence allows you to care very deeply and even act quite courageously, but without demanding a specific pre-approved outcome from the other person or the situation. It allows you, for instance, to speak your truth clearly and firmly, but without completely collapsing if the other person reacts poorly or doesn't immediately agree.
Okay, so it's not about avoiding the storm.
Yeah.
It's more like being the tree in the storm.
Yeah.
The branches might bend, the leaves definitely tremble, maybe even a small limb breaks off, but the core root system remains still grounded.
That's a beautiful image for it. Exactly. The goal is to be fully present with their messy, complicated, imperfect humanity, and our own, of course. To accept them as they are right in this moment, warts and all, without being completely uprooted or thrown off balance by their imperfections or by our reactions to them. And this inner stillness, this groundedness, it's cultivated through the practice of sati, mindfulness.
Sati, which means remembering, right?
Yeah.
Remembering who you really are underneath all the layers of reaction and fear.
Yes, remembering your deeper nature. So when anger arises, the automatic instinct is often to act immediately, to yell, maybe, or to slam a door, or sometimes to suppress the feeling entirely, pretend it isn't there. The practice of mindfulness asks us to do something different, to pause, and then to actually lean in towards the sensation. Observe it, almost like an impartial scientist watching an interesting phenomenon.
So noticing the physical experience, The heat flushing up my neck, the tightness in my chest, maybe my thoughts racing, blaming, just noticing it all, without instantly judging it as bad or right or wrong, and crucially, without immediately acting on it, just thinking, this is the feeling of anger arising. This is what fear feels like in my body. How does that simple act of observation, how does this actually transform the fire?
In that moment of impartial observation, you create a tiny but absolutely essential gap, a space between the stimulus, the trigger, and your habitual response. And in that gap, the raw power of the anger to just sweep you away is broken. It loses some of its momentum. It loses its power to deceive you into believing that it is the ultimate controlling reality of the moment. This, I think, is the real alchemy of awareness.
And this awareness, it can lead to a crucial realization, can't it? That the anger is actually rarely personal.
That is often the pivotal insight.
Yes.
When you can step back enough to realize that the partner who just snapped at you, maybe they aren't acting from calculated malice directed at you. Maybe they're acting out of their own exhaustion, their own stress, their own deep-seated fear, their own inner storm. When you see that, the perception shifts dramatically. The ancient teachings often summarize this inner struggle through the lens of what they call the 3 root poisons or motivations: greed or craving, aversion or hatred, and delusion or ignorance.
Okay, so if I realize my partner's impatience or their critical tone is maybe rooted in their own struggle, perhaps with financial stress, which would be a mix of aversion and craving, and it's not actually a carefully aimed arrow designed to pierce my worth, then the anger naturally softens because the illusion of being personally attacked starts to dissolve.
It often softens into something more like compassion, or at least understanding. Understanding the why behind their action dissolves that feeling of victimhood. Now, this absolutely doesn't mean you have to tolerate harmful actions. Let's be very clear on that. Boundaries are essential. They need to be set clearly, sometimes very firmly. But the internal perception changes. They shift from being seen as an enemy who intentionally set out to hurt you to being perhaps understood as a fellow human being who is struggling, lost in their own pain, acting unskillfully from that pain. That insight alone is the first crucial step toward transforming conflict into an opportunity for profound growth.
This realization seems to lead directly to, well, maybe the heart of the whole thing, which is that the person who triggers us the most, of the one who can push every single button with almost surgical precision, that person is, in fact, potentially our greatest teacher.
They are acting as a mirror. A very clear, sometimes very uncomfortable mirror. Every point of friction, every trigger in an intimate relationship is like an intercession point. There's a concept in Buddhist philosophy called pratityasamutpada, dependent origination. The core idea is that nothing exists in isolation. Everything arises in dependence upon other factors. So your intense reaction and their specific action, they arise together. Like 2 notes played simultaneously in a chord, maybe a discordant one. To blame only one note or to focus only on one note is to fundamentally misunderstand the music, the pattern they're creating together in that moment.
Wow. So the profound question then becomes radically internal. Instead of fixating on, why are they doing this to me? Why are they making me angry? We have to shift entirely. We have to ask, what is this moment revealing about me? What unhealed expectation or what unacknowledged need within me is being brought right to the surface by this interaction?
Yes. And it requires, I think, a deep intellectual honesty with oneself. Perhaps your partner's sudden need for space triggers your own deep-seated discomfort with being alone. That's possible. Maybe their impatience mirrors your own intolerance for uncertainty or for things not going according to plan. Maybe even a child's rebellion echoes a desire for freedom that you yourself had to suppress decades ago just to fit in or meet external expectations. The other person in these moments is often simply holding up a mirror to the part of you that still feels incomplete, or unseen, or unloved.
And this radical turning inward, this leads us to another important concept, right? Yanisamanasikara, wise attention. This feels like the critical turning point where understanding moves beyond just intellectual insight and starts to become genuine transformation.
Yes, wise attention isn't passive. It requires us to engage actively with our inner experience. So when that anger flares up, the immediate compassionate inquiry needs to be, okay, what core need inside of me is crying out right now? Is it a need for safety? Is it a need for recognition to be seen? Is it a need for fairness, perhaps? Once you can identify that specific need, then comes the critical follow-up question, the moment where we really reclaim our agency. And that question is, can I offer that feeling, that sense of safety or recognition or fairness? Can I offer that to myself right here, right now?
That feels incredibly powerful because it completely breaks that cycle of demanding change from the outside, doesn't it? I stop trying to fix them or control them to make them meet my need, And instead, I redirect that demanding energy inward towards soothing my own inner ache, recognizing ultimately that my healing, my sense of wholeness, it must be my responsibility, not theirs.
That is truly the hallmark of a mature emotional response. It's taking responsibility for our inner world. And we can embody this approach even more deeply through a practice called Tonglen. It's often translated as giving and taking. In the heat of intense emotional pain, the practice might sound paradoxical, even counterintuitive, but it can be profoundly liberating.
Okay, how exactly does one practice Tonglen when you're, right in the middle of a tense moment with your partner? It sounds difficult.
It is challenging, but simple in form. When you feel that tension, that pain, that anger rising, you consciously practice breathing in the suffering. First, acknowledge and breathe in your own pain, the tightness, the fear, the hurt, fully feel it. And then you intentionally extend that breath to breathe in the other person's suffering too, their stress, their exhaustion, the pain that you sense might be driving their unskillful action right now. And then on the out breath, you consciously breathe out compassion, relief, peace for both of you.
So breathing in the knot of the hurt, mine and theirs. And breathing out a genuine wish for both of us to be free from this specific pain, this specific conflict. Wow. That really shifts the whole dynamic, doesn't it? It moves the energy from seeing the other person as an adversary, someone I need to defeat or change, to seeing them as a fellow traveler, someone caught in their own difficult storm, just like me.
And that shift, that internal shift in perspective, it changes everything. It fundamentally alters the energetic quality of the space between you, even if nothing external has changed yet. The ultimate insight, perhaps, that we need to carry from all this is simply this. When we are truly, deeply furious at someone we love, we are, in a fundamental way, at war with a part of ourselves. The part that maybe believes love has to be perfect, or the part that's terrified of being unlovable, or the part that fears the world is just too chaotic and unsafe. The anger is merely the sound, the reverberation of that inner battle playing out.
So the goal then, the ultimate aim, it's not this kind of sanitized, conflict-free relationship that maybe we sometimes fantasize about. Mature love, it sounds like, isn't defined by the absence of friction or difficulty. It's defined by the courage to stay present, to stay open and engaged, even when that sacred mirror of the relationship cracks, even when it shows us the full, messy, uncomfortable truth about ourselves and the other person.
Mature love accepts that anger is, likely, an inevitable energetic component of death intimacy. It will arise. The task isn't its immediate suppression or feeling guilty about it. The task is its wise utilization. The goal is to consistently practice letting anger become a doorway that leads us back towards our own heart, back towards understanding, rather than letting it become a wall that isolates us from our loved one and from ourselves. And maybe we can offer 3 simple but potentially powerful steps. Think of them as a living practice, something to integrate into daily life.
Okay, let's hear them. The first step feels like it must be the foundation for everything else, creating that pause ritual.
Yes, absolutely crucial. When the heat rises, when you feel that physiological surge, that urge to yell or lash out or immediately jump to defend yourself, you must try to institute a mandatory pause. Just decide beforehand. Do not speak for at least, say, 10 full seconds. Count them slowly. And this isn't just about being silent, it's about actively creating a tiny gap in time, a space where freedom lives, where choice becomes possible again. You could maybe touch your wrist, feel your pulse, or feel your feet grounding into the floor. Use gravity to pull you back into the present moment. And silently just whisper inwardly, "This is a moment of suffering. May I meet it with kindness." That simple physical and verbal ritual can help break the automatic neurological chain reaction.
Okay, that pause creates space. Then the second step is about reclaiming agency, right? Moving out of feeling like a victim and into being more of an empowered witness to your own experience, which involves reframing the narrative.
Exactly. Shift your internal language immediately or as soon as you notice it. Stop saying inwardly or outwardly, "They made me angry," or "They ruined my whole evening." That language gives away your power. Instead, try using language that reclaims your emotional ownership. Something like, "I felt triggered because I needed some quiet time after work," or "I felt dismissed just now because my need for respect wasn't met in that moment." See the difference? It shifts the focus from blaming the other person for your feeling to clearly identifying your specific unmet need that got activated. This helps you move out of that emotional reactivity trap and towards clearer, more constructive communication later on when things are calm.
Right. Identify the need. And then finally, the third step, the essential practice of reflection. But this is done after the storm has completely passed, after your body has calmed down.
Yes, when the atmosphere is peaceful again, maybe later that day or the next morning. Dedicate just a few minutes to quiet inquiry. Always ask yourself, okay, what specific insecurity or vulnerability did this anger actually reveal about my own unmet need? And then, crucially, how can I learn to nurture and soothe that specific part of myself more effectively? How can I provide myself with the needed security or validation or sense of fairness without making someone else entirely responsible for perpetually healing that ache within me? The real transformation happens when we consistently turn inward with kindness to soothe our own fundamental aches and vulnerabilities rather than constantly demanding external validation or compliance from others.
This really does feel like the alchemy we started talking about at the beginning. The friction, the conflict, it's probably inevitable in close relationships. But we can learn to let that friction guide us back towards more self-awareness, more inner strength, instead of letting it push us away from the very people we cherish most.
It's about choosing again and again in small moments and large ones to try and see the struggling human being behind the behavior that triggered you. To remember that love isn't the promise of perpetual harmony. It's not unbroken sunshine. It's more like the immense and enduring courage required to stay open, to stay present. Even when the full spectrum of human experience, irritation alongside tenderness, deep disappointment alongside grace is present, all at the same time, right there in the room with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This whole exploration, this deep dive, it really reveals that our fury, that intense anger at those we hold dearest, it's not proof that the love is failing or that we're somehow emotionally broken. It might actually be proof that the connection is profoundly, fiercely alive, so alive that sometimes, yes, it aches.
And the most profound, the most lasting healing often happens through the fire of that honest friction, not by skillfully avoiding it forever. True love, perhaps, is the courageous ability to learn how to hold both the hurt and the deep, tender affection in the very same heart at the very same time, without allowing one powerful force to completely destroy the other. It's the discovery, maybe, that love isn't ultimately about controlling the other person or the situation. It's about owning the immense courage of your own open, vulnerable, and resilient being.
So listener, the next time that intense rage arises, maybe unexpectedly, in the presence of someone you love, try not to despair immediately or rush to judge the feeling or yourself for having it.
Instead, pause. Just pause. Maybe even bow inward, metaphorically, towards that heat, towards that fear, and say silently with as much kindness as you can muster, thank you for showing me exactly where I'm still holding on too tightly. Thank you for reminding me that this messy, complicated, imperfect truth, this is the necessary beginning of real love.